The Richard Roeper Show is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. The digital landscape is changing rapidly, and to compete in today's online business environment, you need that experienced partner. Since 1995, AmericanEagle.com has partnered with companies of all sizes, offering web design, web development, e-commerce, mobile apps, and digital marketing to drive your overall business's success, because they believe that today's online world is your online opportunity. Visit AmericanEagle.com to get started today. AmericanEagle.com, that is AmericanEagle.com. We are in the AmericanEagle.com studios in the Chicagoland area. And here we are. It's the end of summer, not calendar summer, but kind of just the way we always think of summer. It's the last weekend in August, Friday, August 29th, which is, believe it or not, the beginning of Labor Day weekend. Now, it's interesting, these American holidays we have. Now, the 4th of July, I'm pretty sure, is always on the 4th of July, and Christmas is on December 25th. But we have these other holidays that, they move around a little bit, because you have Thanksgiving, where the dates will be that particular Thursday in November. And then Labor Day, of course, is the first Monday in September. So it could be as early as September 1st or as late as September 7th. Anyone? The 7th. So this year it's actually Monday, September 1st, which means we're going into Labor Day weekend and it's still August. I thought, in honor of Labor Day and everybody out there who works so hard in these trying times, that we would do a couple of things kind of tied into the date. I'm going to start off by talking about the best workplace sitcoms of all time. Talking about sitcoms set primarily in the workplace. A lot of sitcoms have people who go to their jobs, and sometimes we follow them to their jobs, but they're not really primarily set in the workplace. For example, Seinfeld. There were all kinds of storylines with Elaine when she was working for Jay Peterman, or Mr. Pitt as a personal assistant, or George when he worked at the Yankees and he had a bunch of other jobs. Play Now, I think, was the one place, right, where they tried to get him to leave, and he battened down the hatches in the bathroom. And of course, Jerry on the road doing his sitcoms. Even Kramer had some jobs, so to speak.
Kramer, I've been reviewing your work. Quite frankly, it stinks.
Well, I've been having trouble at home, and I'll work harder, nights, weekends, whatever it takes.
No, I don't think that's going to do it. These reports you handed in, it's almost as if you have no business training at all. I don't know what this is supposed to be.
Well, I'm just trying to get ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. There's just no way that we could keep you on.
But I don't even really work here.
That's what makes this so difficult.
But it was primarily, Jerry's apartment and socializing and things like that. But these are sitcoms set primarily in the workplace. My favorites. I know you have your favorites. I wanted to mention this too, because I had the same public email address for a very long time. And then I left the Sun-Times a few months ago. And you can always contact me through, if you go on AmericanEagle.com and the AmericanEagle.com studios in my podcast, you can reach me through there. But you can also reach me at Richard Roeper 2025 at gmail.com. All one word, Richard Roeper 2025 at gmail.com. And of course, Richard E. Roeper on the Twitter and Richard Roeper on the Instagram. And I've even kind of returned. I never left Facebook, but I wasn't spending as much time on there. And then I realized I have two Facebook accounts. One is professional and one's personal. Although they're basically the same. But the way it works with Facebook is whatever your original account is, you can't get rid of that ever. You can't pour your friends and followers or whatever from one to the other. So on the personal account, there's still a 5,000 friend limit on one account and then unlimited on the other account. So I realized that there were 10, 15,000 folks who were on the Facebook account. So you can find me there, but also Richard Roeper 2025 at gmail.com. Richard Roeper 2025 at gmail.com. So my favorite workplace sitcoms of all time, and I'm going to preface this by saying we have a new workplace sitcom that's actually launching in less than a week on Thursday, September 4th, Peacock Original. It's going to be called The Paper, not to be confused with the very fine movie of the same name. This is from the same folks who brought you The Office, primarily Greg Daniels, but I think even some of the original folks from the first Office, Ricky Gervais, et cetera, are in the executive producer wing here. So the paper, the conceit here, the premise here is the same documentary crew that immortalized Dunder Mifflin's Scranton branch. Remember, they finally came out with a documentary after a decade, An American Workplace, I think it was called. Now they're doing a documentary about a newspaper that is in Toledo, the Toledo Truth Teller. And it's a struggling Midwestern newspaper. I can't believe they're going to make a sci-fi series, a struggling Midwestern newspaper. That seems crazy. And it's about a publisher trying to revive it. So it's a workplace comedy. Donald Gleason, who's terrific, Sabrina Impacciatori, Chelsea Fry, Melvin Gregg, Alex Edelman. Also, Oscar Nunez, who is going to, I think, reprise his role as Oscar from The Office. So it's going to follow the workplace adventures of staffers and publishers, et cetera, at a newspaper.
My name is Ned Sampson. I am your new editor-in-chief.
Have you read this paper?
Uh-huh.
How do you think it compares to any other paper?
It sucks. But we are going to make it better.
Not again. I'm not agreeing to any of this. I will make this unusable. Use that.
Classic definition of a workplace comedy. And of course, workplace comedies, you have obviously, they're called sitcoms because they're situation comedies. And when you have that workplace, the dynamic there where different things can happen and also lends itself to guest stars and different, especially if you got a great ensemble cast, then people can come in and out. And as we saw with The Office, some characters who barely were given any mention in season one were then became featured players. A lot of them were writers as well. Mindy Kaling, BJ Novak, and their characters and their roles got bigger. The Office, I'll say, is one of my all-time favorite sitcoms. Maybe my favorite. Part of the reason is you just got that repeatability that we always talk about. Very much comfort viewing. I've seen every episode many, many times. It's interesting, too. When you go back and watch The Office, and this happens with a lot of sitcoms, it takes a while for these shows to find their footing and really develop their personalities. And The Office, like a lot of shows that debuted 20, 30 years ago, would get like a half season run or a shorter season run than they decide, but they also would give them more time to develop. We know famously that Seinfeld and the Seinfeld Chronicles, as it was called, the 4-episode arc, took a while for those shows to catch on. With The Office, the Michael Scott character, it's always been an amazing thing that Steve Carell, his performance there was so good because Michael was such an asshole. And especially early on, although he was still inappropriate all the way to the end and, would say things that would get you fired. And even back then, the characters, other office mates would say, you can't say that, Michael. But early on, especially, there was almost a mean streak to him. And then, because of Steve Carell, because of the terrific writing and the chance that the show had the chance to breathe, Michael became at least a character who was somewhat sympathetic. And then we'd learn more about his backstory and we'd say, oh my God, this guy had, an unhappy childhood and was never, always struggled to fit in all the way until he was 40 years old. He was almost like a 40-year-old virgin. But by the second season, The Office had hit its stride. And it's interesting too, because when I go back, I go, God, you love this show, even though so many of the characters weren't particularly likable. And then some of the characters were, and I mean, when I say not likable, I go, their personalities weren't. I mean, Rainn Wilson, again, Dwight Schrute could be a monster and could be horrible, but always likable performance. Andrew Bernard is one of my least favorite, and this is nothing against Ed Helms, the way the character was written, he played him, but Andrew Bernard, most of the people in The Office didn't like him. I could see why. He's just an off-putting character. And you get that in a lot of sitcoms. But overall, the ensemble grew. We had new additions. We had great guest stars. I love The Office. So that's one of my top for sure.
Honestly, Michael, it's for you to know it so that you can communicate it to the people here, to your clients, to whomever.
Oh, okay.
What?
It's whoever, not whomever.
No, it's whomever.
No, whomever is never actually right.
Well, sometimes it's right.
Michael is right. It's a made-up word used to trick students.
No, actually, whomever is the formal version of the word.
Obviously, it's a real word, but I don't know when to use it correctly.
Not a native speaker.
I know what's right, but I'm not gonna say, because you're all jerks who didn't come see my band last night.
Do you really know which one is correct?
I don't know.
It's whom when it's the object of the sentence and who when it's the subject.
That sounds right.
Well, it sounds right, but is it?
How did Ryan use it as an object?
As an object.
Ryan used me as an object.
30 Rock. It took me a while to warm up to 30 Rock. We've had so many shows about television, so many television shows about television, and many of them really, really great. I mean, well, might as well mention right now the Mary Tyler Moore Show, one of the great sitcoms of all time. WTMJ, I believe, was the station that Mary worked at. And, I think it's easy sometimes for TV to do TV. And for me, this was like, okay, this is 30 Rock is about a network, and there's kind of an SNL type show. And Tina Fey, who created the show, was the showrunner and starred in it. She knows what this is material, But over the years, I really came to like it. It had this great absurdist edge to it, where it'd go way out into the comedy of the absurd and strange flights of fancy. Lots of inside references and clever things and commentary without hitting us over the head with it. Alec Baldwin, of course. Jack Donaghy became a legendary character. Jane Krakowski and Tracy Morgan. It grew on me over the years, so I would put it in among my favorites.
I'm back. What's going on? What have they done? Do we need to shut this down?
Lemon, calm down. Everything's going to work out just fine. The show's about to begin. Your sketch is adequate, and I've got the fun cooker.
What? What about the...
It's the Bear and Robot Talk Show.
Jenna needs to sleep or she's going to die! Which one of you is Jenna? Oh. Go to sleep! Sleep, Jenna! Sleep! It's for your own good!
When we talk about newer comedies, I think one of the best comedies of the last 15, 20 years is Abbott Elementary. And again, Abbott Elementary, I didn't jump on it right off the bat, only because the job I have, I'm watching so many other shows and streaming series and reviewing things, and of course movies as well and documentaries. Don't do a ton of reviews of network stuff, and that's no slight to them. It's just because there's only so much out there. And also, I feel like a lot of network shows, like the Dick Wolf shows and things like that, people are going to watch them or they're not. They're kind of critic proof. If there's something really special, like Modern Family when it first came out, then I'll highlight it. But Abbott Elementary, as opposed to certain shows like Seinfeld, like The Office, that I do think took a while to find their footing. From the get-go, Abbott Elementary, from the pilot, hit the ground running with the amazing cast, creating these characters who we instantly recognized and got their personalities. And it's been that way throughout. The ensemble cast is amazing. Some of the best writing I think we've seen in any sitcom ever, really. And that's why it's winning so many awards. But you could drop in. It's better to start at the beginning, but you can drop in any episode of Abbott Elementary. I don't think there's been a clunker yet.
I found someone to teach the gifted program.
Why are you breathing so hard?
I'm excited.
Well, it's weird. You should get that checked out.
Okay. Okay, guys. So I know we're all on board with the gifted program.
There you go, sounding like an old locomotive.
Honey, you've got to walk at a normal pace.
Kind of has that combination of, there's some cynicism and snarkiness, but a lot of heart, as we say, ticker, as they used to say. You got to have that ticker, which, you can compare it in some ways, even though it's very different settings and circumstances. With Ted Lasso, I didn't have on my list here, my little list, I didn't put Ted Lasso as a workplace comedy, but I guess it is, right? I mean, it's set primarily in the offices and on the pitch, if you will, in the bar, the soccer club. I guess, there's so much that goes on there that takes us outside the realm of it. I didn't immediately think of that, but I think you could put it in that category as well. Another one of my favorites, Parks and Recreation. That's another one where it didn't take long to hit its stride. There were some interesting, and this happens a lot too when you watch the early episodes of Parks and Rec. You're like, oh, I forgot about that character. He was on for about 5 episodes, or she was on, and then people come and go. And Adam Scott and Rob Lowe and Rashida Jones and different, kind of supporting players who then became more leads. But it was always Amy Poehler's show, just like 30 Rock was Tina Fey's show, so her former co-anchor. And I will say Parks and Rec, again, very much a workplace sitcom, because so much happens in the offices of Parks and Recreation. And Leslie Knope is one of my favorite sitcom characters of all time. Amy Poehler was so good. I think she's so good that I think maybe didn't get enough credit for the acting, because we know the Amy Poehler persona, which is usually somebody who's very sunny and very smart, and but still, wants to believe the best in people. And that certainly was the case with Leslie. But she was the best, right? And there was so much to like about her, even though she could be irritating sometimes with her, her can-do attitude and her perseverance. But she played well off of everybody. Of course, Nick Offerman with Ron Swanson and Aubrey Plaza. The show helped to make a star out of her, and Chris Pratt. A lot of these shows, the ensembles are just so good. But I love Parks and Recreation.
We are throwing a Halloween party at our house. It's going to be the greatest thing ever.
Someone will die.
Of fun.
And of murder.
There's going to be beer, pumpkins.
Bloody goblins.
Fake ones. It's going to be awesome. We have decorations.
Dead people that we just murdered.
Not murdered, but pictures of dead people from TV or movies.
Mutilated bodies.
But fake ones. Candy, dancing, tequila, all kinds of food and snacks.
Blood orphans.
No blood orphans. I don't know what that is.
I mentioned the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I would put that in there as well. In the same vein of shows set either in radio or television and newspapers, the Larry Sanders Show, very knowing, kind of its time, of a certain era where, a Tonight Show-esque type of thing, but, really, really well done. WKRP in Cincinnati, to me, not one of my favorites, but good and solid. It's a show about a radio station, but it's very little resemblance, even for a sitcom, to actual news radio, and Frasier probably captured that a little bit more. WKRP in Cincinnati, though, had a great cast. And, here's the thing. I've worked in radio on and off for 30 plus years. And whenever your profession, we talked about this, no matter what it is shown either in a sitcom or a movie, whatever the case may be, you're going to be like, well, that would never happen. Radio's been one that we've had a lot of shows set in the world of radio, or the person is a radio host. A lot of movies. Talk radio was really well done. There was a film called FM back in the day, which was, the idea was it was set in the crazy FM world of radio, man, where people were doing drugs and sex and this and that. Not a good film. We did get the song FM, No Static at All, by Steely Dan, but we have not had a ton of great movies, but some pretty good TV shows. And Cheers. Cheers is definitely a workplace comedy that has to be mentioned. The bar setting, and that's, we've seen it in Wings and a lot of other things, but that bar setting was so brilliant because you had your regulars and then you had people who joined, obviously. If you don't know the history, Shelley Long as Diane Chambers, had the initial, the pilot's brilliantly done, by the way, how she ends up working at the bar. She gets left behind by her fiance. And there was the whole will they, won't they, which would get in shows like Moonlighting as well. Not really a workplace comedy, not really even a comedy. But anyway, with Cheers, Shelley Long then wanted to pursue a movie career, so she decided to leave Cheers, and then Kirstie Alley came in, and a lot of people thought the show even got better. And then we had other changes in casts over the years. There was in the early going, Nicholas Colasanto, who played the bartender, but he passed away, and then Woody Harrelson came in and played Woody, and other characters. And Frasier, of course, was a spinoff of Cheers. But the premise with the bar just lent itself to so many people coming in and out with their situations.
Hey, what's going on, Normie? It's my birthday, Sammy. Give me a beer, stick a candle in it, and I'll blow out my liver. Hey, it's his birthday, did you hear that? I just want the day to come and go just like any other day.
I think you can pull that off.
That's my list for you. My favorite workplace sitcoms of all time. If you think I've missed some or you've got particular favorites, as I mentioned, Richard Roeper 2025 at gmail.com. You can hit me up there. Let's talk about Portillo's, and then we come back. What we're going to do now In the second half of the podcast, folks, we're going to talk about some of my favorite movies that were released in the month of August through the decades. All right, let's talk a little bit about Portillo's. They're known, of course, for their famous Chicago hot dogs with all the freshest and tastiest ingredients, right down to that famous poppy seed bun. Then we have to talk about the legendary chocolate cake. And everybody knows if you've ever been to Portillo's, but if you don't, you never put the cake in the fridge. You have to have it at room temperature. That's how it's delivered to you or handed to you in the restaurant. That's the way you have to taste it. And of course, the menu has everything from the charbroiled burger to Italian beef to some really good chopped salads. But oh, that chocolate cake, I'm telling you. Now, there are locations throughout the Midwest and in Florida, California, and Arizona. But you can also ship Portillo's anywhere in the United States of America by ordering at portillos.com. That's PORTILLOS.com. PORTILLOS.com.
Truck. Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Our fugitive has been on the run for 90 minutes. Average foot speed over uneven ground, barring injuries, 4 miles an hour. That gives us a radius of 6 miles. What I want out of each and every one of you is a hard target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, or doghouse in that area. Checkpoints go up at 15 miles. Your fugitive's name is Dr. Richard Kimball.
All right, a little sound there from The Fugitive. One of my favorite thrillers of all time, the perfect action movie, which was a big hit and widely acclaimed at the time and got several Oscar nominations. Tommy Lee Jones won for Best Supporting Actor. The Fugitive came out in August of 1993. We're celebrating movies because we're at the end of August of 2025 right now. I thought we'd celebrate August releases through the years. It's interesting because there used to be this conventional wisdom, which I guess was never really true wisdom, that August was kind of a dumping ground for movies, as well as January. January because the holiday releases were still playing in theaters, and studios would say, let's just throw in that, that lower budget horror film or that smaller film in January while the Oscar contenders from the holiday season are still playing. In August, and this is what I was always told, although, again, am I looking through this list, I go, not necessarily the case. But the idea was August, in the modern era we're talking about, from the 70s and 80s on, August was, the big summer movies, and this is still true in some ways, the biggest summer releases, the biggest budget summer releases come out from Memorial Day through about mid-July, because you want them to have as many weeks as possible. So, your Superman or your Jurassic World, whatever the case may be, you want them to have many, many weeks to play in the theaters, even in this day and age when things come to home video, faster home video, whatever you want to call it, streaming. That's still kind of the case. But by August, that's when a lot of families are getting in those last summer vacations. The back to school signs are up in the stores, if you still go to the stores or online. And some schools even, some kids return to school even before Labor Day. Or if your kids are going up to college, you're packing up and on your way, all that stuff. So movies are not necessarily, there's so much else going on in terms of just, shifting gears. And then we get to the fall seasons, which still traditionally after Labor Day, you still get more Oscar contenders. You still get more serious films. You still get more adult. When I say adult, I mean grown-up fare in the theaters, because you do have empty nesters and couples whose kids are in school and seniors, etc., who are more the target audience for the prestige movies more so than the Superman type movies. But I looked through this, like a lot of films have come out in August, and maybe there wasn't the biggest expectation, and maybe sometimes it was strategic. I think The Fugitive, they knew they had something on their hands there. But you go back to 1978, August of 78, National Lampoon's Animal House. And I remember seeing this. I would have been like a teenager, a rowdy teenager, and I believe I saw it at the Evergreen Park Theater, and there may or may not have been some Lowenbrows that we sneaked into the theater. Remember Lowenbrows? That was considered, kind of classy German beer. But National Lampoon was a big deal. They had National Lampoon magazine. in the 60s and 70s in the National Lampoon Radio Hour, where a lot of the cast members of National Lampoon Radio Hour, John Belushi, I think Gilda, Brian Doyle Murray, Bill Murray, were members of the National Lampoon. National Lampoon Radio Hour was more of a feeding ground, at least as much as Second City in the early days for Saturday Night Live. But still, they did a movie, a National Lampoon movie. So National Lampoon's Animal House, it was kind of a sleeper hit. Belushi was the breakout star there, but he has limited screen time, but stole everything. Almost everybody else who was in that movie, they were not well-known actors at the time. The movie, though, became a massive hit and spawned so many other, raunchy comedies, many featuring National Lampoon alums. There was a ton of other National Lampoon movies, including National Lampoon's Vacation, of course. And National Lampoon's Vacation, John Hughes was a writer for National Lampoon magazine. The original Vacation story was a more nostalgic, warm-hearted, although a little bit had some of the same urban legend type stuff, was a story that John Hughes wrote for the magazine, and then it became the Vacation movie, which was a huge hit. Some of the other National Lampoon, we got so many it was National Lampoons this, National Lampoons that. You had the Vacation movies, which were big hits, but you had a lot of other ones that didn't really take off. And by the 2000s, the National Lampoon name I think had been bought and sold. So you'd get something that would say National Lampoons this or National Lampoons that. They really didn't have much connection to the original National Lampoon brand. So that was a big hit in August of 78. This was kind of a sleeper hit as well. August of 1986, Stand By Me.
You got you, man. Sincerely, you won't believe this. Can you, Gordy?
Yeah, probably. So what are you pissing and moaning about, Verno?
I knock.
What? You liar. You ain't got no pad hand. You didn't deal yourself no pad hand.
Make your draw, shit heap. You guys want to go see a dead body?
Great coming-of-age drama. Came out in August of 1986, based on a Stephen King story. I believe the story was called The Body, and Rob Reiner. And the young cast, they just struck something there, and about friendship. When you're 12, do you ever have friends who are like that ever again? So that was a big hit. And then in August of 1989, now Do the Right Thing, I think, had come out a little bit earlier than that, but then it went wide, and God, it was a perfect release for an August, because so much of that is about race and literal heat and metaphoric heat on one block in Brooklyn. That came out in August of 1989. If we go into the 90s, I remember this and again, this is one that had a lot of buzz, but wasn't necessarily a sure thing. And I'm talking about The Sixth Sense, August 1999.
I see dead people.
And of course, M. Night Shyamalan. He had done a couple of small films before that, but that was such a box office sensation. And Bruce Willis was already a big star, but we saw a different side of him. But the script was the star of that movie. Amazing film. Back then, too, the great thing was when you saw The Sixth Sense in theaters, people were like, don't give away any of the twists, including the major one. And you were able to protect those secrets so much easier back in 1999, just before everything went viral and meme and people not knowing how to keep a secret. Go up to the 2000s. We had Superbad in August 2007. Another, a lot of these, they kind of fit in the same vein. There's the good credentials involved, young talent involved, but the studio putting them in theaters in August because they weren't sure for sure if it was going to take off. So you had Superbad in August 2007. You actually had, we kind of referenced The 40-Year-Old Virgin, came out a couple of Augusts before that. Actually, going back in time a little bit through the 2000s, because if I'm going to take a flight of fancy, I'm almost positive this August, it would have been August 2002 when Signs came out, another M. Night Shyamalan film. And then later in the decade, Inglourious Bastards. And through the 2010s, we had Crazy Rich Asians in August of 2018, Black Klansman that same month, same year, and even Bullet Train in August of 2022 with Brad Pitt. So you see, kind of, even though they're very different, we're talking about different genres here, of course, action movies, comedies, supernatural, thrillers, but in almost every case, they weren't necessarily considered box office guarantees. They weren't Avengers movies. They weren't giant comedies with huge stars. They weren't huge sequels in most cases. So August has become this kind of really interesting place where it's not really a dumping ground, but there's a little bit room for experimentation. There's a little bit room for movies to find their way, because if they come out in late July, maybe in limited release, you can do a wide release in August, and you can kind of let them play a little bit longer until you get to the Labor Day weekend. Then after Labor Day, as we mentioned, it's time to get a little more serious and still put more, prestige bait, awards bait type films in theaters. But when I look at this, I think, wow, through the decades, August has been pretty special, actually. Maybe after the holidays for 2026, we'll take a look and see if January has been unfairly maligned. Although, just based on my experience and recollections, I'm going to say not so much. I can remember a lot of Januaries thinking, like, what's coming out now? But we'll take a look. We'll take a look for a future podcast. Okay, that's going to do it for our Labor Day special. You might be in the airport right now. You might be in a road trip. You might be taking the kids to school. So I thought I'd give you just a fun little August themed podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm Richard Roeper, and we will talk again soon.